Today, Music Talk talks to Devin Abrams, who is Pacific Heights, about his new album, The Waters Between. We find the former Shapeshifter at home in Hawke's Bay, eager to talk about working with his friends Louis Baker and Jack Page, along with a slew of up-and-coming talent. It's taken a few years, but finally, The Waters Between is ready to see the light of day.
I finished and put out my Lost Light album, which was the last album in 2018. So really off the back of that, I started quite quickly onto this record. But
Right.
I guess the first songs that are still on the record were conceptualized and initiated in kind of late 2018, early 2019.
Okay. And so when you're working on a record, are you thinking in terms of the whole package, or does it come together bits and pieces? Do you have a concept in mind at the beginning?
Well, the last record was definitely fully conceptual. I had I think you and I even talked about it. I had a dream, and it was based off all of that. Wrote a whole script down for it, and everything had to kind of like bow down to this like strict concept. But this album was a lot more open as far as I just wanted it to replicate my emotional setting and my feelings, really, and the space I was in and where I was traveling to and who I was working with. And I guess if it has any concept, the only loose concept that would be there tying the album together is that the album's about emotional distance. Because at the time I was spending a lot of time in Los Angeles and Sydney, away from my family and my wife. And so, it was about the waters between the kind of like, I guess, holding that distance.
Right. Well, the water's between. The water's everywhere now. So
is it what, man? Like, yeah, we were getting enough rain for like 2 months here today.
Yeah. So I noticed you got a few little interstitial tracks that aren't titled. That in fact, the album starts with one, and then there's a couple other ones. So are those there to kind of tie things together?
Yeah, they are mood pieces, and I really wanted to acknowledge my past as Pacific Heights, because when I first started, I was completely instrumental for the first few records. So it's also a hark back to my early identity as an artist, and I think they're nice. They're nice ribbons that tie the record together.
Now you work with a lot of people on this, a lot of collaborations.
A lot of collaborations, which I love, but my manager hates because it's a lot of paperwork. But I love collaborating. In an ideal world, I would just work with a village of people,
Right. So how do you work with, is it different with everybody, or do you have a kind of set way of approaching when you work with someone?
Different with everybody. I try and, as a producer, obviously, I produce a lot for other people's projects outside of my own. And I've learned to collaborate in a really efficient and open way. And I think for me, it's just allowing the artist that you're working with to feel that they can work the way they want to work. So I'm more of a chameleon in that sense with how I work.
Right. Well, one of you got is Lupani on We Never Have Tomorrow, who I think is from here in Auckland.
Let's run from the crowd. The world is too loud tonight. Can we just try to find a place to hide? Don't say goodbye, 'cause you and I might never have tomorrow. So let's stay forever tonight.
We actually met at an APRA Song Hubs in Auckland a couple of years ago, just before COVID. Like, I think it was maybe February or March 2020. And him and I did a session together and wrote a song for his project, which got released. And we kind of had a really good, strong, creative connection between us. And he's such a lovely human being as well. Very soft, very gentle, very sensitive and vulnerable vocalist. And I just wanted to keep working with him. So we did some more writing sessions. We didn't really know where the songs were going to go. And then we wrote We'll Never Have Tomorrow over a couple of in-person sessions and Zoom because of lockdowns and stuff. Right. I love his voice. It's crazy because he's quite a big, stocky, Fijian boy. And he has this most sensitive, fragile vibrato and softness to his voice, and I just loved it. I love that. I love that. When you listen to someone, you have no expectation. You think, you assume that they might be this fragile little person, and he's this,
Yeah, right.
And I love that. I love that about him. I just think that's a really beautiful juxtaposition.
Yeah. And what can you tell me about the song itself?
Well, yeah, I mean, the song was about having, and this can be with any kind of relationship, whether it's a love or a friendship, or someone that passes through your life. But it's that idea that a relationship can be so powerful in such a short existence, and that you try and make the most of it, and know that you won't have another opportunity to do that. And I think that's a good way of looking at life, making the most out of any friendship or relationship you can every day, because we don't know if we'll have tomorrow. So both of us had personal situations around that, and so
Right.
we wanted to package that into that song.
Okay. I see there's a tune called "We Don't Feel This." We don't feel the same, or the world don't feel the same.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite on the record. I love that, adore that song. That was with Paul McClaney. Yeah, that's a really poignant song given the state of the world.
That's what I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely adore that song. One of my favorite moments on the whole record is the outro of that song. So yeah.
And so, what spurred you on to write the song? Because I mean, let's face it, the world isn't the same for anybody these days. So, but everybody's coming from a different place.
Well, I'd have to give a lot of credit to Paul, really, for sparking that direction, and I think once he kind of laid down a few ideas, I knew that was the hook, that was the mantra of the song, and we both just ran with it,
Right.
and Paul's a very fast writer. I mean, that song really bloomed very quickly compared to some of the other songs on the record.
Is there saxophone in there?
I put a lot of my saxophone on this record. If you listen through with fine-tuned ears, you'll hear it probably through half the album.
Uh-huh. You like playing the sax?
Well, that is. I'm not sure if you can see it here. Let's
see it.
It always sits there.
Oh yeah, there it is.
I went through jazz school on saxophone, and it was the instrument I played in Shapeshifter along with synthesizers. And
Right.
unfortunately, I don't play it enough, and I've had to actually get back into it and practice a bit because I was a bit rusty, and actually really enjoyed putting it back in my production. So I think hopefully I'll do some more practice eventually, and it'll become more of a mainstay in my.
You have to keep your chops up. Is it
absolutely?
a physical thing?
Yeah. Oh, it's a physical thing. I mean, obviously your hands, how they move, and it's a memory thing. But then the embouchure in your mouth and being able to hold the saxophone, I can probably only play half decent for about 10, 15 minutes, and then
right.
To be a professional saxophonist, you really have to practice every day. And I'm a producer first, so I don't practice. I need to.
Now you got a couple of guys on here that you've worked before, Louis Baker and Jack Page. So what's your relationship like with them working together?
Well, Jack Page. Well, Louis is probably the one I've worked with the most. He featured on the Stillness record and one of my favorite songs from that record, and then I produced his last EP. So we have a good creative synergy as well. Another old soul in Louis, and he's just such an amazing musician, guitarist, singer.
Set sail for an ocean wide, many miles have been multiplied, and leads me back to you.
So I love working with him. I think there's definitely a real kind of sound that we have together, where the worlds combined. And Jack Page, I only just produced a couple tracks for him. That's how we met and sparked off, and we just wrote the song that he's on at the very end of a couple of days working for his stuff. And it was, again, another one of those songs that came about very quickly. We wrote it in probably half a day, and again, I think his voice has such a unique sound, and he's a big, tall, massive human being. Again, you'd never assume that was what he looked like from his voice, but yeah. And we wrote another track for maybe another Pacific Heights release in the future, and I really like working with him. He's a great keyboardist, and has a really good, solid understanding of harmony, and I love people that have intricate harmony understanding.
Right, right. So I'm curious, as a producer and as a musician and writer and all that, over the course of, say, the 4 years between this release and the previous one, do you listen to a lot of other music? Do you get it? Do you hear things and go, "Aha, this is interesting," or do you try to just kind of stay in your own little space?
I mean, I've done both. I've gone through periods where I don't listen to anything but the stuff I'm working on.
Right,
But I've tried to implement more of a consistent routine where I spend my first half an hour every day in the studio, first thing in the morning after my coffee, scouring YouTube for obscure ambient or jazz records I've missed in the past, and then
right.
spending time on Pitchfork and Bandcamp finding new stuff. And I've got some great friends that I collaborate with that are amazing at sending me stuff, and we share stuff. But I'm a consummate thief. I'm always learning Bruce Hornsby Keys parts, reverse engineering them, and then trying to find a way to put them in my own music. Or, Steve Reich and his crazy harmony. And I mean, I think unless you're one of those rare, super rare human beings where you can create something transcendent within yourself, which I think is exceptionally rare.
Right.
I think the way to be a great artist is to steal stuff and put it
Steal
and make
from
it
the best.
steal from the best, and then find a way to make it your own and cocktail it up into something new.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm always now re-engaged with listening to a lot more music than I did in the past, where I would just be listening to the stuff I was working on, and I think I got a bit of tunnel vision. So it's been really nice getting back into like putting my vinyl collection downstairs with the kids on some mornings, and just routine. Music's routine now, like listening.
Cool. Kids love records, don't they?
They do. They really do. And they really like the, tactile nature of them, and turning the amplifier on and then putting the needle on the record. And hopefully they don't take after me, because I wrecked a few of my parents' records and their turntable by trying to scratch when I was very young, so hopefully they don't figure that one out.
Yeah, I'm sure. You got to start somewhere.
You do.
Now, I was wondering if you're listening to any gospel. You have a track called "Floating," which has a kind of gospel.
Oh, I love gospel stuff, man. Love gospel. I remember when I was younger, I have a connection to the US with some extended family there. I dropped out of high school, and my parents said, you're either going to go get a job, or you're going to go, go overseas, and you're going to live with your uncle and work on a farm. And so I went and did that, and that didn't last very long.
Whereabouts in the States?
Well, a lot of my family's in California, but where I was actually based was Oklahoma, which is in the middle of nowhere. And it was quite an extreme difference to New Zealand, or Aotearoa. So I didn't last long at that job, but I really enjoyed the time of, like, I made some really great friends there that I still stay in touch with. But anyway, I joined a couple of different bands while I was there. I joined a big band, brass, like jazz big band. And then I also joined a gospel band, which was in an all African-American community. And I joined a bunch of old black guys in their blues band for a while as a sax player. And this was all when I was like 16, 17.
So what did they think of you? I mean,
they thought I was crazy. Like, they couldn't
American
understand
myself. I know they have no idea where New Zealand is or what.
No, and they couldn't understand me, because, as you know from being here for a while, we speak very fast, and even though it's English, they didn't understand half the stuff I was saying. But they thought I was crazy, and they loved me. And but one of the things that I took back from that experience was absolute love of gospel music. The power of it, the power of the harmony, and the way that the musicians play together, and there's no theory, there's no writing, it's just all feel, and it's it's very spiritual. And I've tried to, as you can probably hear, implement some of those harmonic movements and style of production where it's I've tried to keep it very organic, like recording claps and like live bass and the Hammond, and putting stuff in there that would be very much in a church setting.
Right. And who is Lance that's featured on that track? Because I know
he's a young artist he's got just started his own project that I've done some production for. He's from Wellington, amazing young artist. He was classically trained, I believe, in opera, and then got into electronic music and more pop stuff. And I love that, where his voice sits. I think it's very unique, how he sounds, and you can't quite tell if it's female or male. And, I just think it's really great.
Seems like there's a kind of a scene in Wellington. A lot of people coming up. You got another guy, Solomon Crook.
Another exceptionally sounding vocalist. Deep, raspy. Got that old soul vibe on him. Yeah, it could be from the era of Leonard Cohen's. And he's quite a nifty producer as well. So he helped me with the production on Mercy and that song you were talking about with Lance.
Yeah. So what's next? Are you taking the show on the road? What are you going to do?
No, I mean, in some capacity, I miss playing live. Being a musician, actually being on stage and connecting with people physically, I do miss that. But there's a lot of, I get a lot of anxiety. I always got a lot of anxiety from performing. Very nervous, and you're very anxious about going on stage and touring. Believe it or not, I mean, I wouldn't have looked that way, but it was definitely how I felt. And
I can relate.
Yeah. You put on a brave face.
I'll just because I use on the radio from time to time. Every time I had to do anything, I was completely sweating, turning all shades of.
But you wouldn't know it listening to you, would you?
Hopefully not. But then one day, like in my 50s, it went away. It was like, oh my
God!
Wow! So hang in there is what I say.
Yeah, right. Okay. Maybe I need to give it another shot. But the other main reason why I probably won't be doing live shows anytime soon, other than maybe some specially curated DJ sets, is that I'm a perfectionist, and I need to know that I can put the time and effort in with a band, like proper rehearsals, making sure there's interesting, changes to the live show and different arrangements, and that takes time, and that is something I have a lot less of now with a family and producing for other people and deadlines and not at this stage. I'm always looking for ways to collaborate with other disciplines in art, visual artists or anything, dance, ways to put Pacific Heights in a different setting. If that can happen, I'd love to do that. That's the plan, is just to keep trucking on making great music.
There you go. Well, you can't ask for more than that.
Well, hopefully people think it's great. I think it's great, so I'm just going to keep doing that.
That's the important thing. Cool.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, good luck with the release date on Friday and everything. And
thank you, Marty. Yeah, it's great to chat again. I feel like we've got a good little tradition going on these albums, chatting. So
I'll talk to you again in 4 years, and
I don't know if I'll survive another 4-year record. I know my wife won't. She's probably the happiest out of everyone that this record's finished, because she's sick of hearing it. So hopefully it's not another 4 years, but we'll see how we go.